Sports fans, nerds, welcome both of you. This is a marriage that has been destined to happen for years. I'm here to help expedite this. You don't have to be a nerd or a sports fan anymore. You can be both. And I'm here to help you with that on our introductory episode of Sports Invaders, starring Josh Houselander. That's me. On this first episode, we're going to just kind of kick things off a little bit. We're not going to dig too deep. That's Nick's job. We're going to do something a little different. We're just going to talk about football video games for this first episode, especially Super Bowl number 47 coming up this weekend. Everybody's excited about it, so we're just going to talk about football video games. What is it about football, for instance, that makes people go so crazy about it? People in this country love their football. They're more passionate about it, in my opinion, than any other sport. Truly. I mean, the football puts fanatic back into fan. I mean, that's where the football fans are in this world. And where football games are so strange is football video games are the one instance when you have something that typically, if you're playing a football video game, you're a football fan. That's not necessarily true about other games. You're playing a basketball game, you're playing a hockey game, you're playing a soccer game, maybe you just like the action of it. Maybe you like the graphics. But football games, you gotta be a football fan. And more so than anything else, the football fans, they want their football games to be so realistic. They want it to be exactly like Sunday football. Maybe that's because football is only on the weekends. Maybe it's because you don't get to see it every single day. Maybe it's because the NFL only plays a 16-game season and you don't get quite as much football as you can basketball or hockey or baseball. So that's where we leave you with football. People have been obsessed with football games forever. I mean, look at this thing. Look at this thing. This is my classic football video game. That's what it's called, too. I'm not saying it's classic because it's old. It's called Classic Football by Mattel. This thing is crazy. People were so into this thing. This is lights bouncing around on, I guess, what's a football field. I got a confession to make. I've never been able to figure these things out ever. People went crazy about this game because it was football and it was a video game. But it wasn't enough. People wanted it to be realistic from the beginning. Long before baseball, basketball, and hockey came for being realistic, your football games were. 1983, 10-Yard Fight comes out. This game comes out for the arcade, so it's a coin-op game. You don't typically see the coin-op sports video games, but you did with football. Just with 10-Yard Fight. This game was later, it was ported to the NES, but it was never really the same. This was an arcade game. This is your first game where you see characters that look like football players out there. People went nuts over it. There's no real play calling. There's no real anything. In fact, you only really control two guys throughout the screen, throughout the game, but people loved it because it was football. It looked like football. You felt like you were watching a football game, which is what people love. It's not until later, Fourth and Inches comes out. This game, this is the first one where you get play calling. That comes out in '85. This is the first one where you're trying to pick your play. So primitive by what we have now, but people needed that right away. People love the realistic parts of football. There was a big push in the late '80s, early '90s. They had real talk or sports talk football. ABC Monday Night Football was a game for the SNES. TV Sports Football. These were TurboGrafx games. These games were trying to emulate football as you watch it on TV. They have announcers. They have, they have play calling. But what they find is that it wasn't really the watching of the football game that people wanted. It was the controlling of the football game. You get, in '87, you get both Tecmo Bowl and John Elway's Football. John Elway's Football is a huge game for the arcade. Didn't translate quite as well to the NES. Most people for the NES preferred their Tecmo Bowl. And Tecmo Bowl people become a fanatic for Tecmo Bowl. They can't get enough of it. they're playing it, and now the people that grew up playing Tecmo Bowl, they're still playing games like Madden and NFL Blitz to this day. So 87, people are playing Tecmo Bowl. You're play calling. You're getting options now as to how to play your certain games. Madden actually comes out. It's not as big as Tecmo Bowl back then, but Madden is such a huge franchise. Comes out in 1988. The first Madden game, believe it or not, is actually for the Commodore 64. John Madden is a brilliant or lucky guy that he signed up with this franchise back in the late 80s. He signs up, and it's huge. It's an institution. Madden football games at this point are almost their own sport. They almost transcend what football is or what video games are. There's just Madden competitions out there. It's huge. I mean, it's the second biggest selling sports franchise game of all time, second only to FIFA, and that's because there's like 700 countries in the world where the only sport they've ever heard of is soccer. I mean, that's the only reason. I mean, it's called American football, and it's the second selling game in the entire world. It's enormous. It's on 25 plus platforms. I mean, you can't. What other games like that? Name your platform. Whatever you're playing video games on, there's a Madden game for it. NFL Blitz comes out in 1997, and Madden's not even touched by it. NFL Blitz becomes a successful franchise in its own right, but it doesn't even affect Madden's numbers, because the only people buying NFL Blitz are people that just can't get enough Madden. They buy Madden and then they buy NFL Blitz the next day and they master both of them. It's an insane thing. So people can't get enough football. That's obvious. They're buying these football games. It's everywhere. The more competition, the better. It doesn't matter. People want to go crazy. People are absolute fanatics over football, and it goes into video games. You don't really know what else to say about it. It's very different. We're going to discuss hockey, basketball, baseball in future shows. But for now, just think about football and how it's so much different than the other ones because people are so obsessed with football. As much as I'm talking about how much these games are so huge, if you don't like football, people are going to look at a Madden game and think, what the hell am I playing? I don't want to deal with this stuff. That's not true with other games. It is with football. So keep that in mind. Love football games, hate football games. You're probably because you either love or hate football. That's it.